Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Cooking with the Independent Foodie, and thank you for joining me. It's fantastic to always have friends joining in. Bear with me a few seconds while I set up the iPad, and then we can start to chat and then go through the ingredients as well. Okay, so that's started. Hi Sushila, hi Stephen, thank you for joining. Just to say it's fantastic, and Karen, thank you for joining as well. It's been such fun sort of seeing y'all's dishes being posted to the page or sort of messaging me y'all's pictures. It's lovely to see people trying the recipes and that to see that you're enjoying it. And I think also really good recipes, and sort of it's just because it's difficult to sort of taste something when it's being cooked virtually. But I'm glad that you've all tried it and you're really enjoying it. Welcome, Richard. Lovely to have you as well. So today we're going to be making Mongolian meatballs. So it's something I haven't done before, and who knew they even existed. So what we're going to be doing is starting off with the ingredients like we normally do. The light is a bit bad because it's a beautiful sunny day up here in North London, and the sun's starting to set, so there's a bright light coming from the back. So please bear with me whilst we go through all of that. So the ingredients for today is obviously, the key ingredient here we're using is beef mince. We're going to be using a 20% fat mince. You want it a bit fattier because of these meatballs. They need a bit more fat, right? And then we're going to be using some breadcrumbs. You can use panko or you can use the normal breadcrumbs. You're looking for roughly about 60 grams of breadcrumb that's going to go in there together with 500 grams of mince. We're also going to be using 1 egg. And then you're going to be using ginger and garlic. So I'm using the ginger and garlic paste today. So we're going to be using 2 tablespoons of the ginger garlic paste. If you're using ginger and garlic separately, remember it's a tablespoon each. So there's a tablespoon of ginger, a tablespoon of garlic. I'm using 2 tablespoons of ginger garlic paste, which I have here. And we're also going to be using the black pepper. You can use white pepper as well. And we're going to be using some chili flakes, so about a teaspoon of chili flakes, just to give the meatballs a nice kick. I tried some earlier. I made a pork version of it, which we'll be cooking in a few minutes and putting that into the oven whilst I demonstrate with the beef. Really tasty, lovely flavors coming through there. And that's sort of and then we're also using obviously soy sauce. So the light soy sauce, we're going to put about a tablespoon into the actual meatballs, but we're also going to be using about 3 tablespoons of this later on when we come to make the Mongolian sauce. Right, so for the Mongolian sauce, what's really, and obviously, and then the spring onions as well. We've got the green spring onion bit here for garnish later. We're going to be adding 2 stems of the spring onion as well into the meatball mix, right? So we'll get to that in a second. And then we've also got the sesame seeds for garnishing. So make sure you toast those off. That's about just more than a tablespoon. I put about 2 tablespoons in because I'm making 2 separate dishes. One a pork dish for the neighbors and the beef dish I will have. And then we've also got, for the actual Mongolian sauce, really important. So we're going to be using hoisin sauce. We're going to be using oyster sauce. And like I said, we're going to add soy sauce as well. Now also to give the Mongolian sauce a nice kick, we're going to be adding a bit of sriracha. So sriracha chili sauce is going in there as well, and that's about a tablespoon. Again, if you don't like too much of heat, just add less of that, or you can leave it out completely. The other important thing that's going in there is shoaxing wine, so that's the Chinese rice wine. We're adding some of that in, and we're going to be using a tablespoon of the sesame oil as well. And then your salt and pepper is to taste for the sort of meatballs. We're not adding any salt and pepper into the actual sauce later on. And then the last 2 things that need to go into your sauce, you've got about roughly 30 grams of brown sugar. And then you've got about, I think it's about a tablespoon of the cornflour. And that's mixed with about 30 mils of water roughly that's gone in there, maybe a bit more, but 45 mils of water that's gone in there. Now, if you like me, sometimes I just realized how bad I am. I've been using a mug as a cup for measures in the past. And today I decided to actually use a proper cup measure and realize that it's actually double the amount. So all the time I've been using my white mugs thinking, yeah, that's a cup. And which explains why when I bake stuff, it doesn't quite always work. So yeah, use a proper measure. 180 grams, 180 mils is roughly a cup. Now I know that, so I'll be using that going forward, right? So what you want to do is get your bowl. So get yourself a nice large bowl. We're going to move this down to the stove whilst I demonstrate the actual way of doing this meatball. Now, it's very important. We don't add the meat in first. We start putting all the ingredients in, and we're going to mix those up. So what's going to go into this bowl right now? I'll bring you down, and hopefully you can all see that. Yep, brilliant. Okay, so into the bowl, we're going to be starting off putting our 2 spring onions. That's the greens and the white bits. And remember to keep the green bits, the other green bits are staying there, and that's going to be for the garnish later on, together with the sesame seeds. Then you want to add your egg, right? So 1 egg going in there. Make sure the egg is fresh. Yep, put 1 egg in there. No shells, lovely. Put in. And now, really importantly, you're going to be adding the 2 tablespoons of ginger garlic. Sorry. Well, a tablespoon of ginger and a tablespoon of garlic. And you're going to add, in my case, I'm adding 2 tablespoons of the ginger garlic paste, right? So that's 1 and 2 going in there. And that really gives it a nice punchy flavor of ginger. You get this lovely ginger and garlic, fresh garlic and ginger taste coming through the actual meatball. And then it finishes with a nice kick of chili, which is really, really important. So what you also want to do is add your teaspoon of crushed chili, and that's going in now. So I'm using the chili flakes, so that's going in. And this is a teaspoon, you know. You don't want to put too much of heat in there because you're going to get a lovely sauce as well later on, so which is going to have a bit of heat. So just keep it down to a teaspoon of chili, and that's going to be fantastic. It's all the spice that we're putting into this. Now you want to add about a quarter teaspoon of pepper. So either black or white pepper can go in here. I'm just going to crush them up to about a quarter teaspoon's worth. Yep. So that's about a quarter in there. And then you want to add about half a teaspoon of salt, right? Now salt to taste, as I always say. I'm going in with half a teaspoon. It would be easier if I sort of took off the salt earlier. Yep, so it's about half a teaspoon of salt gone in there. I'm happy with that. Then you want to add your breadcrumbs. So we said roughly around 60 grams of breadcrumbs going in here, right? So that's 1/3, and that's 60 grams. I put just a little more than that. Okay, now also in here we need to put our soy sauce, and that's a tablespoon of soy sauce going in here. And we are using a light soy sauce. Do not use a dark soy sauce because it can be very, very strong, and you don't want to overpower the flavor of the meat. Right, so we're keeping it fresh. We're putting in a tablespoon. Get that out. Oh. Brilliant. Okay, and that's a tablespoon gone in there. As you can see, there's no oils or anything going here. We just got all of these lovely fresh ingredients. Just going to mix those up. And what you're going to end up with is what looks like a very eggy mixture of breadcrumb and egg, and your green and the lovely red chilies as well. Now, really important when you're doing these meatballs and you're adding the mince, remember you don't want to smash your mince up into a paste, right? So once you've got all this nicely mixed through, make sure it's mixed thoroughly. Right, the rest, next and very important part, which I will show you in a second. Let's get the mince. Fresh mince. Now I don't normally like fatty mince, but the recipe needed 20% fat, so we're going to give it 20% fat and see how that goes. Right, so the whole bit of mince going in there, and this is really, really important now. So you're going to take your fork, and gently what you're going to do is break up your mince like that, right? You just want to sort of break the mince up. You don't want to smash your fork down, you just want to lift the meat up. And you're going to do the same thing throughout the entire process to incorporate all those lovely flavors from the mixture below, right? So once you've got all your meat sort of loosened up, remember it's an upward sort of motion of just mixing that through, and you're going to keep doing that. until all of these flavors are mixed into the meat and you've got everything nicely coated, and you can start forming your meatballs. Now, I'm not going to take up the entire show standing here and making the meatballs. I will do these meatballs later on. But what you want to do is just sort of make sure you keep mixing that through. Keep forking that. Don't press down. Don't sort of flatten it. Don't be tempted to put your hands in there and start squashing everything together. It takes a bit of patience. So you just got to work your way gently through each of the bits of meat, making sure it starts to get coated in. The ginger garlic paste, the green onion, the lovely soy sauce, and your salt and pepper, and the egg and the breadcrumbs, right? You want it all nice and coated. So that's what you're going to be doing with the rest of it. Now, like I said to you, I made some earlier, so we're going to be moving things slightly forward, right? So I'll come back and I'll finish this off later on after the show or when we have some time in between. But what you want to do is, once this is all mixed together, you want to take your fork and literally form a small ball, right? And you should get about 22 big or medium size meatballs. Now, if you're serving this at a party and you want to make them as little, put them on little skewers, I would suggest you make them smaller. So half the size that I've made, so you can use half a fork of meat, and you don't want to squish them together. You gently want to roll them in your palm to form these balls. So just for demonstration purposes only, because I'm going to finish this off later on, so I'll show you how it's sort of taking shape. It's still not thoroughly mixed, so that's what we're working towards. We're still going to mix that a bit more, right? Because we need all those flavors to incorporate. But I'm going to fast track the process in a second. So literally you're taking a little bit like that, put it into your hands, just gently roll that in your palm. And you don't want it to be too tight. You want to keep them like that, right? So you want to form little meatballs like that. And those we're going to fry, air fry, or bake, right? So I'm going to come back to that like I said. And I'm going to show you the ones I made earlier. So earlier I was experimenting and getting the pork ones ready. So these are the ones I've made for my neighbors to have, because they obviously don't eat beef, and respecting that, I'm going to be giving them, yeah, use your hands. Yeah, I didn't want to squash them all together, but this is sort of what I've made. These are with pork, because my neighbors don't eat beef, so I've made that. And you can see it's also got a little bit of chili in there, your spring onion, and there's this beautiful flavor or smell of ginger and garlic coming through that as well. Right, so these are going to go into the oven. I'm putting them into the oven now at 160 degrees. I'm putting it up to 180. And I'm going to cook that for 15 minutes, right? So that's going in for 15 minutes. And we'll check on them in 15 minutes. Yeah, it's very important. Like, you know, I think it's great to have my fantastic neighbors that I have. And I did promise them that I will be making these meatballs today. And then I obviously asked them if they eat beef, and they said no, they don't. So I had to do the pork version. So yeah, it's cool that I'm doing that for them. Right, so the next thing we're going to start doing now is working on the Mongolian sauce. Now remember, this is a sauce that's very versatile. You can do other things with it. So you can make meats, and you can do roast, and you can add the Mongolian sauce to it. The sauce takes roughly about 7 minutes to make, right? And we're starting off with a tablespoon of sesame oil. So in our wok, we've got the wok up to 6. And this is such an easy dish to make, because you're literally just adding all of the ingredients together into the actual wok, and you're just going to cook it. Now separately, I said to serve this with, so that's a tablespoon. Make sure you use sesame oil. It's got a nice nutty, strong flavor, and that's sort of very Asian. And that's the sort of Asian flavor you want to have. And this dish goes really, really well with a garlic rice. So I've made the garlic rice already, but I'll talk you through how easy it is to actually make garlic rice. And that's also going to bring another depth of flavor in the sort of garlic rice together with these meatballs. So once the sesame oil starts to reach temperature, put it back to 7. We're going to go very quickly with starting to add our rice wine vinegar, the soy sauce, the oyster sauce, and the hoisin sauce. And again, we're going to be adding a tablespoon of ginger and garlic in here as well. Okay. Now, I always like to fry off the ginger and garlic first. So In this one, we're putting a tablespoon of ginger garlic paste. So it'll be half a teaspoon, sorry, it'll be half a tablespoon of ginger, half a tablespoon of garlic. So I'm putting in a tablespoon of ginger garlic paste in there. I always like the sound of a sizzling wok, so that's great. We can take that back down again. That's flatter, so take it off the heat quickly. Get that garlic through. Okay. That just smells amazing. Right, the next thing we're going to do very quickly, remember with the light soy sauce, that's 3 tablespoons going in. One, 2, 3. Okay, and then we're going to add, bring it down to 5. We're going to add literally 2 teaspoons of shoaxing wine, so the rice wine vinegar, so 2 teaspoons, that's roughly that, so put that in there. 2 tablespoons of your hoisin going in. Let's put a small one, so 3 teaspoons. 3 teaspoons, or sorry, 6 teaspoons or 1 tablespoon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's in there. So that's 6 teaspoons of the hoisin gone in. And now we're going to add the oyster sauce. Now the oyster sauce, roughly it's about, well, there's a tablespoon that we're putting in there. Just hope it comes through. Yep, and that's a tablespoon of the oyster sauce that's gone in there. The next thing you want to do is add your sugar. So I'm using caster sugar, but you can use any sort of brown sugar. And you want roughly about 30 grams in there. Okay. And you want to you're going to get this lovely paste forming. You want to make sure you keep mixing that. You don't want this to burn. You just want this thing to cook. You incorporate all those lovely flavors into that. Okay, you also need to add some chili flakes in here. So just to give it an extra heat, if you want to, you can add a teaspoon of chili flakes or half a teaspoon of chili flakes. I'm going to be bold and add a teaspoon because I like a bit of heat. Let's hope the neighbors enjoy that too. Okay. I think Charlie suddenly realized there's food being cooked. And he might suddenly make an appearance in the background, making some noise. Hopefully not. Okay. Okay, so just to keep mixing that, remember, I'm going to cook that for 7 minutes, so let's set a time on that for 6 minutes more. Okay, and then we're going to cook that. And then you need to add your sriracha, so that's a tablespoon of sriracha now going in. Need a little bit more sriracha just to make it a tablespoon. It doesn't want to come out. It helps if I take off the lid. One sec. Okay. There we go. And that's a bit more sriracha gone in there. Remember to keep mixing that, you don't want to burn that, so take that back to 5 and just gently work that sriracha sauce into the gravy. And what you've got now is a very nice glaze that we're building up. Remember, the meatballs are going to be put into this glaze. Just wants to really sort of have this lovely dark color, which you can see. It's got this lovely smell of chili and all the other sort of sauces that are now mixed in there. Your oyster sauce, your shoaxing wine rice wine is cooking off, so you can get that smell coming out in the moment. You just want to let that cook for another 5 minutes, right? And then we'll add the water mix with our cornstarch. So remember, we've got the cornstarch in here as well. Just make sure you mix that through. You want it sort of being stodgy. And we add that in a minute or so. Okay, so we've got 4 minutes left to cook. I'm going to add this cornstarch in, thicken the sauce, water in there. Okay, I'm just going to mix that up again. So we get our color back. Okay, just wax the stove up to 6 now for the last 4 minutes, and just let that cook through. Okay, once that's cooking, I'm just going to bring back the beef and continue to sort of work through that. Meatball in there. So this makes my life easier later on when I come to make mine, and hopefully we can sort of show you some of this as well. So just going to keep mixing that. Just like I said, you know, the upward motion of the fork. You don't want to smash the fork down. You want to pick the meat up and bring those flavors in from the bottom. But keep pushing through and cutting it up so it's taking the flavor throughout the entire bit of meat and not just in clumps of meat. Right, so you just keep the fork loosening that and forking that up, forking it through. Chocolate lint bunny, yeah, that's correct, Linda. There is a lint bunny in preparation for Easter. Unfortunately, it's not for Charlie because obviously birds can't eat chocolate. So it is for Charlie, but it's actually for me. That's the excuse that I'm making anyway. But I will be eating that next week. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so just keep sort of mixing it out, and then keep an eye on this. We don't have any disasters here. And also remember, if you at this point you can start toasting your sesame seeds if you haven't done that already. Obviously, I did that in the beginning, so I've prepped mine as well. Now, I would recommend using a darker brown sugar if you want to, obviously a darker sauce. Obviously I used a very light caster sugar. I used the golden caster sugar, so not the darker brown sugar that you would normally have. But it's got a lovely color here. And remember just to keep mixing this. You've got 2 minutes more for the sauce to sort of cook through. And then we've got another 5 minutes for the pork meatballs to come out the oven. And then we should be in a really good place to sort of plate that up. I spoke about the garlic rice for those who just joined us. So when you're making a garlic rice, I've obviously done some research around this because there's different ways of doing it. There's 2 ways of doing it, right? So one, you can either cook roughly 3 garlic cloves chopped up very finely, further off in about a tablespoon of butter, and you want to add about 2 teaspoons of oil. Now I use a normal sunflower oil. You can obviously use a vegetable oil. I wouldn't recommend using olive oil in that because you want to keep the Asian flavors and not have it sort of a strong olive flavor in the rice. And then what you do is you take your rice and you fry off your rice in the garlic butter sort of paste that you made, and then you add that to your water. And obviously 2 cups rice, 4 cups water, or 1 cup rice, 2 cups water, and you let that cook. The other way of doing it is the way I sort of parboiled my rice. I cooked my rice halfway through. I then added it to the butter and the garlic mix that I made. And after that, and that's our sauce almost done. Okay. And yeah, so that's what I did. And then I added it to the rice and put it back in the microwave to steam again for another 6 minutes. And hopefully we should have some nice tasting garlic rice at the end of this. And like I said, the garlic rice really adds flavor to this dish because you're getting these punchy flavors coming through your meatballs and the sauce, and it just sort of adds a new depth of flavor having that sort of garlic finish in the rice as well. Again, you can also have it with egg noodles if you fancy it. They go well with an egg noodles, or you can just use a plain rice. Now with these ones, I'm going to make them a bit smaller. As you can see, just very quickly in your hands, doing that in there. So as I said, half a fork full of the mix, and you basically want to do that, right? Very gentle. You don't want to sort of squish them. You want them to cook. And the reason why we say make them all the same size is because you want to ensure that they all cook thoroughly through, right? You don't want to serve raw meatballs to anybody and give them food poisoning. So yeah, just going to use the hands. They obviously much faster, because last time I know I put gloves on and it was just a nightmare. So learning from that. And you'll notice the meatballs we made the last time, which were more sort of Indian inspired meatballs, we put things like coriander and mint in there and fresh chili. With these ones we haven't done that. We kept it very simple, and to be honest, the flavor is just brilliant. Like when I tasted the pork ones earlier on, because I cooked 2 of them to check the cooking time, and it was just so yummy. Like even without the sauce, it was just brilliant. So I can only imagine what it's going to taste like once we have the actual sauce. So we've got roughly about 2 minutes more for these meatballs to cook, but it does look like it needs a bit longer. So I'm going to give them another 4 minutes in there to go a bit brown. I'm going to whack that up to grill, and let them sort of grill for another 3 minutes. In the meantime, we'll get these sort of meatballs done as well. And I just also want to say, thank all of you. Thank you for sort of all your lovely comments for the article that was written about me, or the interview that I did with 1,000 Voices. And it's so important that, that I share that story, because I didn't want other young men or women to grow up in South Africa feeling like they were less, or, that they couldn't be their authentic self. And I know it's much more difficult in South Africa to come out and to be your authentic self. There's still society demands certain norms, and when you are a member of the LGBT community, especially in South Africa, it is much more challenging. It's a very small community of people, and people tend to talk and create stories and problems. So, my heart went out to everybody that reached out to me to tell me, how inspirational the story was. That wasn't my intention, but I'm glad that it's inspired people. Obviously, I shared it because I wanted people to know what I've been through, and that, through all the adversity we suffer in our lives, we can overcome. And it's about being resilient and really sort of making a difference for other people as well. And that finding that freedom and that liberation, to sort of just be me, and how it's really helped my career as well. Obviously, I'm very proud of the business I work for now, because the support I get from them is absolutely fantastic. Like, my career has just been amazing. The last couple of years specifically, because at points we all hate our jobs, right, for some reason or the other. And, I found over the last 2 years specifically, we'll say year and 6 months, having a new line manager, having all these incredible learning opportunities and embracing them has just been fantastic. So, it's important that we all recognize we all have a story. Each of our stories are unique and beautiful, and we all need to share our stories, because we all have different challenges, like I said, and we never know how our story is going to impact somebody else. So yeah, I just thought I'll share that and just say thank you all of you for the love and the kindness and the compassion that I had over the last week. It has been fantastic. On positive news, we're going out of lockdown tomorrow in a sense. We can finally meet in people's gardens. I'm looking forward to that, especially Richard's garden and Marion's garden. I love spending time with my friends and just sort of being, just forget the amazing food that Richard makes, but just sort of that human connection and seeing people is going to be just fantastic. And I can't wait to be able to do that again. So wherever you are, in the world, I hope that things are easing up. Thoughts and prayers are with all of you. Some of us are still going through a lot at the moment. We've lost loved ones. But it's really good that, we can find the time to spend with each other. And I'm busy talking. I might be burning the meatballs. And let's hope that's not the case. Okay, so the meatballs are almost there. We'll give that a few more minutes. Let's set the timer. 4 minutes, and then we can continue our chat. Okay, so yeah, and I was just saying, you know, my heart goes out to all of you because we all have different things happen, like, you know, losing jobs, losing family members, losing friends. But we just need to stay focused and look towards that day when we reach this new normality, whatever it looks like for us. So looking forward to that. And as sort of, you know, the lockdown eases, we all need to be sensible as well. You know, whilst obviously they're lifting restrictions in certain things, we still need to be mindful that there's still a global pandemic going on, and take care of each other in the sense of, you know, be responsible in the way in which you meet, but also, you know, make that time to start to reconnect and build those relationships with your friends that you've obviously missed throughout this period. So I'm almost there with making these lamb ones. There's still a lot of lamb to sort of work through. So we're going to come back quickly back to the pork meatballs in roughly 2 or 3 minutes. Now remember, pork is a very white meat, so I'm hoping to see the meatballs nice and white, and obviously a bit brown on the outside as it starts to go through the grilling process. And just hope that it's going to taste amazing. So I'm going to finish off these later on. Don't want to bore you with you having to watch me sit there and play with the meat. So that's what I've made so far. And then what we want to do now is bring out the actual rice, get the meatballs out, and then start the actual plating process so you can see what we've made. I'm just conscious that I haven't tasted the sauce yet, so I'm going to do that and make any final adjustments before we do the actual plating. Wow, that is awesome. There's just like the sweetness, the sourness, the saltiness, and this heat. That is fantastic. Like, I've never tasted anything like it before, so it's like really interesting. A nice thick glaze, which those meatballs are going to go into in a second, and we're going to plate that up with some of the lovely garlic rice that I've made. Let's get the garlic rice out the microwave. As you know, I love my microwave steamer. So Sheila tells me I'm lazy and it's really easy to make rice on the stove, and yes, I know, but when you love it, when you love something this much as I love my rice steamer, it's what I'm using. Okay, so just a gentle smell of the garlic coming through the rice. You can see there's a bit of flakes in there. Okay, so just squishing it up, sorry. So that's what the rice looks like. I'm going to plate some out so you can see it better. Let's get a bowl. Actually, let's just do it in the neighbour's bowl for them, actually. Just makes more sense. Okay, so I'll put some ice in there. Very generous portion, because that's going next door. And hopefully they enjoy that. Okay, so we're just going to put down our bed of rice. Let's check on those meatballs quickly. Yeah, they got some lovely color on them. They're not too brown, but for the interest of the cook, I don't want to open the meatballs, I want them to go rubbery. Just get those out there. Okay, turn that off. And we are good to go. So let's start plating these. Okay, so you can all still see that. Hopefully, let's bring you closer. The camera's kind of a bit misty. Not sure what's happened there, but hopefully, can everyone see that? Okay, sorry. Yep, something's happened weird with the camera. So what we're going to do now is take out our meatballs and put them into the glaze, right? So that's our meatballs going into the glaze. See, they're nice and brown on one side, and they are perfectly cooked. The one thing I'd say with the meatballs, please make sure when you're putting them into the oven that you add some oil into the pan, or they tend to stick. I tried to do some in the air fryer earlier on, and they stuck. So that's why I put them into the oven. Also, they're a bit healthier being done in the oven as well. Okay, so let's put those in there and get them coated. We'll add the rest later on. So all you want to do is mix these, and really you want them to soak up all this lovely color, and just really infuse that sauce into your meatballs. Nice and sticky. A few more in there. I think Charlie's waiting for a meatball. Unfortunately, Charlie, you can't have this. It's got ginger and garlic in it. So whenever Charlie sees food or hears me in the kitchen doing something, he naturally assumes that he's getting something to eat. And he sits there and he makes noise demanding it. Right, so that's what it looks like. I'm quickly going to show that to you before we start to add the other bits in it. So that's what the meatballs are going to look like. Obviously with the bright light you can't see. The glaze is a darker glaze. And what you want to do now is just add some spring onion to that. And then you're going to add your sesame seeds, right? So you're putting about a tablespoon of sesame seeds on top. That's a tablespoon of sesame seeds roughly for that one. And that is our Mongolian meatballs. This is the pork version, therefore it looks this color. I'm going to start making the other one later on for myself. So that's it for today. That's what it looks like. I hope you're going to have fun making that when you do try it out. Highly recommend it. Like, it's an amazing rich sauce. It's really rich, it's really sweet, it's really spicy, and it's got a bit of tanginess to it. Just incredible flavors, like things I wasn't expecting. So yeah, it's just going to be fantastic, and I hope the neighbors enjoy it. Let's put some meatballs in there, and it just makes my life easier because I can just go and deliver this next door. Add some sauce in there quickly, just so they have a bit more sauce, because you want to have that just cover it up in those lovely sauces as well. Stick another meatball on the plate. Okay, so that's going to go next door. I'm just going to add a bit more of the spring onion there, maybe a bit more of that. And that is what I'm going to be sending to my neighbors. Again, thank you all. It's been fantastic cooking along with you. Have a great rest of the week. Whatever you're doing next week, we're going to have some fantastic weather, potentially before we get some snow, which is really crazy. So make the most of it. Enjoy your Easter break, and let me know what you think of Sundays. Are you enjoying the Sundays better, or do you want to go back to Saturdays? Because obviously I know we're coming out of lockdown. Lots of people want to socialize and go out, so I'm not going to expect you all to be to dial in or tune in every week. But it's been fun cooking along with you, and we'll see you all soon. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Love you all and see you soon. Take care until next week. Goodbye.